Hey friends, welcome to Kitty Witty Papercraft. I'm Amy. In this video, I am sharing the two journals I made for myself this year for Christmas. Well, when I say this year, I mean 2020 actually. So the Christmas that just passed, we're now in February of 2021. Depending on when you're watching this, you might be wondering what Christmas they're for. And I made these starting in December of 2020. I just finished them. And when I say finished, I just mean I've decorated them and they're ready to be used. So these are not used journals. I know you guys love to see journals when they are completed. These I'm going to use for this Christmas of 2021. And so they're all ready to go. If you want to see one of my journals that is complete, I do have a video of this journal that I made for Christmas of 2019. And this one is a completed journal. So I do have this one filled, and I have a video on my YouTube channel. I think it just says Christmas Junk Journal Flip Through 2019. So you can see that. But these two are just decorated, and that really is my absolute favorite thing. Making them and decorating them with like trims and ephemera is really what brings me the most joy. Using them is kind of secondary, and I don't really worry too much if I don't get to that part. And I also don't have a lot of time for personal crafting or journaling, so it just is a lot harder for me to do that, but I do still love making them, and I wanted to share them with you today. So I think I'm going to start with this one first. So I made a Kittydori, and I also made it's not even a little golden book, it's a wonder book junk journal, and a Kittydori sewing pattern traveler's notebook journal. So I'm going to put that one to the side for a minute. And let me put that one here. I'll start with this one. So I started with this Waiting for Santa Claus wonder book. It's one of my favorite Christmas books. And I really love this one because there's lots of yellow, not only on the cover, but throughout the book. And I love when yellow is added into Christmas colors. You'll see that a lot in vintage Christmas illustrations. And I just love that. So it's kind of a little bit untraditional as far as, or non-traditional when you think of Christmas that you see today. It's just so much red and green. There's a lot of yellow in this book and in vintage illustrations, so I really wanted to work with that. And in this video, or in the journal, excuse me, I used yellow on the spine. And let me zoom out a little bit. This is vintage chenille on the spine. So I have not used vintage chenille as my spine fabric before. I do use fabric on my spines, but chenille, as you can see, is very bumpy. And so I wasn't too sure how it would act. So I thought I would do that on my own journals so I could kind of experiment with it before I ever made a journal to sell. If I ever get back to making these kinds of journals again to sell, I wanted to test it out. And chenille comes in all different varieties, so there'll be different levels of like bumpiness to them. So I chose one specifically that didn't have really thick chenille on it. So chenille is the raised bumpy parts, and the chenille is on a cotton background. So the cotton part is thin enough, but some of them, the cotton part is really covered with a lot of chenille. That would be a lot more challenging. So it's probably hard to see because I have white stitching on this, but I don't even know if I can show it. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. It's raised. Let's see. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can focus this in. It's really hard to see because it's white, but right here where this yellow bump is, the stitching is raised up, so you can see the stitching a little bit more obviously on that part. And these little bits here, I just kind of lifted up the little tufts and kind of pushed the stitching down so it lays a little more flat. Eventually, I will add a tassel to this, so it won't even matter. So I do have a tassel from my journal from last year, the one I showed at the beginning, the Cutie Bears Christmas journal. And I just need to add a hole here, an eyelet, and add the tassel to this here. And that will cover up the stitching anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. But I just wanted to mention that if you ever try to use chenille, try to find one that has less of the chenille bumpy part, because that makes it really challenging. And it was also a little challenging, like down here where the holes were. Finding the needle and finding the hole when I was trying to stitch was a little bit more challenging. Okay, so I'm getting to the flip through. I know people hate when I ramble and ramble. Sorry about that. All right, so I love Wonder Books because they have illustrations on the inside covers. I do like to cover the inside covers of these kind of books, like little golden books, with some kind of paper. I usually use vintage gift wrap. You could also use scrapbook paper. But Wonder Books already have an illustration on them, so that part's already done, so that's kind of nice. And I just left the name just as is, but you could cover that with some kind of stickers. And on the back, Wonder Books usually have an advertisement of some sort, so I did want to cover that. And I did use this vintage gift wrap on the back, and I picked one that had some yellow in it to pick up the yellows. And I used this kind of non-traditional fabric here also to pick up the yellow, and it did have green in it, so I knew that kind of was a Christmassy feel, and it picks up the green in the cover and the illustrations here on the first page. But the yellow really makes this yellow pop here, I think, and you'll see lots of yellow in the story throughout the journal. I put the whole storybook in this journal. So I'm just going to do a flip through, and this journal, I am planning to use this to document my decorations. So I want to take photos of like my favorite ornaments, some of my favorite decorations that I have out at Christmas time, and use this journal to document them, like little stories of how I came to have those ornaments, whether they were given to me by a family member or I found them in an antique shop or what have you. I wanted to put like little stories for all of my favorite ornaments and decorations in this journal. So I will do that this year. So there's lots of vintage book pages and ledger papers throughout here. The scrapbook papers I used in this journal I really, really love, and it's one from 2019. It was called Wishmas by Jody Sanford. So the brand is Fancy Pants Designs, and the collection was called Wishmas. And I think it's copyright 2019, so I assume that was the year that this was out. And I just found it, probably it was scrapbook.com. And I love this paper because there's lots of yellow in it, which is really hard to find in new scrapbook papers. So that is what I used throughout the book. And all of the ephemera is either vintage ephemera or pieces like die cuts and things like this. This is October Afternoon, but most of it is from either Simple Stories, Simple Vintage North Pole. This is just an example of one of the packs of decorations that I have for the journals. This one and the Kittydori that I made. I used Simple Stories, Simple Vintage North Pole, and I also used Pretty Little Studios Christmas Cheer collection. So I just wanted to show those to you. And some of the ephemera in this journal is from October Afternoon's Make It Merry and Under the Tree collections. So I didn't use any October Afternoon papers, but I did use some of their ephemera in here. So I'm just going to kind of flip through here, and if you have any questions about anything you see, just let me know in the comments. I always answer all the questions that I get. So I just had fun just throwing like ephemera and die cuts and little decorations all through here. And then when I go to journal, I will sometimes just take the pieces of ephemera that are already on the page and build my journaling around that and use the other pieces to decorate maybe behind the journaling, like layering and collaging sort of in that way. So because everything is already in here and just kind of clipped in, I use a lot of paper clips. I can move things around and use it on that page or maybe use it somewhere else in the journal. And any of these like little flaps that I didn't use, I can add more things to them. You'll see some of the flaps I did add some decorative pieces to them, but you can also add some paper here that you could use to journal on. This is from a Christmas card list, vintage little books that people use to track like who sent cards to them and who they sent cards to. This is Pretty Little Studio. Any of the little like word phrases in here are from that Pretty Little Studio Christmas cheer collection. I use a lot of their die cuts, some of their bigger ones, some of the smaller ones. Here's more of the story. So in this journal, these little golden book or the Wonder Book pages, you can see I added them upright, and I get questions about that a lot. Like, how do you add the pages from storybooks to a journal, like keeping them upright? Because when you remove the pages from the spine and you don't cut them out, you actually remove the spine from the book, the pages are wider than the book cover. So the way I do that most of the time, and it's a little bit complicated just to explain, I'm not going to go through explaining that whole process in this video, like how I got all the pages like separated but still keep the story in order. It's a little bit tricky, and you can't really use the entire book spread throughout the entire journal. I usually can only fit it into a few of the signatures. I use 4 signatures in my books, but I have to trim the edges off. And for most stories, you can get away with doing that, and it doesn't cut the story off. Or maybe it'll just cut like a letter or 2 off the edge. So you can see here, it did do that, but that doesn't bother me at all. You can still read the story and figure out the story, even if you cut the edges off. So it's not really a big deal, but you do have to lose like a ½ inch or so of the edges of the pages. But if you're willing to do that, then you can fit them in your journal just, upright, just like this, without doing too much trickery to it. Some vintage fabric here. I like to clip in fabric, and then you can just have your journaling be hidden underneath. So it's just kind of fun, and it adds a nice little texture to it there. Vintage seals. So I'll keep things like this just in here, and then as I'm working in the journal, I can just take off the seals that I want to use if I want to decorate like the corner of a page or make a little embellishment cluster or something. These rectangular doilies, I love using these because of the center being solid. You can use this sort of like as a frame to frame out a picture. You can see in my other journal, I sometimes, and I did this in that journal, I make a pocket here or just attach something on top, something kind of fun. I did a little shaker in the Kittydori that you'll see. So I will probably add a photo here, so I just left that plain. I sell these in my shop, by the way, these rectangular doilies now. I sell them in packs of 20. So I love adding these as like another kind of page because it just has a nice texture, and like I said, it's an automatic like frame around whatever you add to the middle there. And I have a video on how I made this shaker pocket. So it is a chipboard frame that I added a tool pocket or a tool like shaker element to the chipboard frame. And then I used dimensional foam tape to make it a pocket. So the tool is actually 2 layers. So the sequins sandwiched between tool. And then I can put something behind it. There, I could add a photo on this tag or something, but I might just use this for journaling on, so we'll see. But there's a tutorial on the video before this one if you want to try to make one yourself. It's just another ephemera piece from October Afternoon. I like varying the sizes. It's a vintage flashcard with just some ephemera and stickers added. There's washi tape I use throughout. So here's like another one of those little page flaps. So you can see I took this book page out of the original book, and in order to get it to fit, sometimes you can also, without cutting the edge of the page, if you don't want to do that, you can bend back part of the page and wrap it around a signature, or like this, I just put it right in the center of the signature. So now I have this little flap, and I added a little piece of ephemera on it. but you could also add a whole page or something. Just use washi tape or double-sided tape to attach it to the flap. So I may go back and add something else there later. And here on this flap, I took 2 journaling cards, take this one out, and I just kind of sandwiched them together and closed in the sides and then left the top or this side open and put another journaling card in so it's a pocket. I love this story. I love the children, the way they're drawn, and the colors in this book are awesome. Vintage buttons, vintage stamps. Put some of these foam stickers all throughout this journal and my other one. Those collections, both Christmas Cheer from Pretty Little Studio. This one is the Simple Stories Vintage North Pole collection. I really love the stickers in that collection. I just like to layer my ephemera, so this is going to be a nice spot for doing some journaling. And then I just layer some more things on top. Decorative and sometimes practical. This is another journaling card. Could do something on the back there. I'll probably put a photo on the back of that. This is from a Vintage Sears Christmas catalog. Here's some of the foam tape, or excuse me, foam stickers. I was looking at my clock to make sure I'm good on time here. And yeah, so this is from Simple Stories. These foam stickers are really nice. I like these better than chipboard. Chipboard like wants to pop off, but the foam is nice because it's flexible and it bends with the pages. And then down here in this corner, it's a little bit hard to see. These are little plastic numbers, and they also came with letters. I think this was from a Tim Holtz set of ephemera, and I think I've had it for a while. I'm assuming it was Christmas because I had Christmas letters, like letters to make Christmas words, and some numbers like this 25, and I stapled them together, and then I just used glue dots to attach them to the bottom of the page so the top is open and it's like a little pocket there. So that's a really fun little set of ephemera. Like I said, I think it's Tim Holtz from a couple of years ago. This is a printable from my personal collection. I tried to make a set of printables from some really great vintage snowmen that I've had for a long time, like digital images that I've had for a long time, and I could not get the printable to render properly, so let go of that idea. So hopefully I can figure that out because I'd like to do some more printables for my shop this year. This is a vintage recipe. And this poinsettia, I'm not sure where that came from, but I just made it into a little page clip, page topper there. And I need to actually use a glue gun and attach it properly, but right now it's just kind of taped to the paper clip there. It's a vintage invitation. This is a flare button that came from Pretty Little Studio, also their Christmas Cheer collection. And then I just added a little charm to this tag, and I just have this kind of like tucked under where it's not completely glued down here under that flare, and it seems to be staying pretty well. And on the page edges, I've got lots of different vintage trims that I used, and you know, pom-pom trim and little vintage fabrics. Got to have some pink in here, so I have a couple pages here that have pink because it's also featured in the scrapbook paper that I love, and I love stars, so I have lots of stars. I have even more stars in my Kittydori, but there's some stars in this journal too because of this paper, so I love star motifs. This is a vintage seal. I think that's a Denison seal, and these cute little scalloped borders. This one I just have kind of paper clipped in, but they have all different sizes in Pretty Little Studio Christmas Cheer collection. So they're fun to add to the tops and bottoms and sides of pages and whatnot. Stars. This fabric trim here, I just kind of have it tacked down on the edge of the page, and I leave this part here kind of open, and I can just kind of use it as a pocket almost. I love this page. This is from McCall's, one of their little like magazines, and this was a fashion digest for December. It has really cute illustrations in it of like little Christmas outfits. This little holly, this came from Hobby Lobby. They had some really neat little ephemera or embellishments this year, so that is what that is from. This is just a vintage envelope with a die cut on top and a little place for journaling there. This is a vintage napkin, and the inside of the napkin has this really beautiful writing inside of it, which is kind of unique. So I just attached this actually with some washi tape to the flap of the envelope, and it's one of those like folded napkins, so the sides are open. You can close that in and make it a pocket, which is what I did on the back side of the napkin. So this is just a pretty little studio journaling card and die cut. I just attached the die cut to the journaling card there. So it just makes kind of like a little delicate pocket. This is a vintage coaster, and I took one of the foam stickers. It's like a dimensional sticker from the Simple Stories collection, and just added it right to the center of this coaster. So it's just a little page decoration there. And a little cluster embellishment here in the corner. And that brings me to the end of this journal. So this one was about 156 pages, front and back, 4 signatures. And next I want to share with you my sewing pattern journal that I made this year. So I normally, when I make my journals, I include a fabric tie closure. Because this one has so much going on, like with the trims on the side and the top, I just used a really simple single strand of yarn. This is not vintage yarn. This is new yarn. Not that you have to have it closed with anything. I also made a chenille cover for this journal. So this is some vintage chenille that I thought would make a great Christmas cover. And I pinned a vintage enamel pin to the front. And I didn't even finish it. I didn't even add elastics to it, but I just kind of popped this journal inside. And part of the reason why I made the trims on this stick out so far, I don't usually do my trims like that much sticking out of the side of my journals, but I wanted it to peek out of the side of this cover. So I made those a little bit longer than I normally do. So, and this journal is really, really chunky. It's actually only 72 pages, front and counting like each side, front and back. I usually make my Kittydoris 80 pages front and back, but I used a lot of embellishments in here, and there's a couple pages that have those foam stickers on them, so that thickened it up. I believe there's probably a chenille pocket in here, so that really made it kind of thicker. So I may actually go to 72 pages in my Kittydoris going forward, so you can really layer them up with embellishments. So, because you can see how wide this is. It's at least 2 inches wide. So anyway, that's how it goes in the cover. And in this journal, I used papers from Pebbles, Cozy, and Bright collection. This is also from a year or 2 ago. And this is a paper pad that has just single-sided papers in it. And I just wanted to use it because I have it. I just had it on hand, and I didn't want to use any more of my October afternoon papers, and I didn't have enough of the Wishmas, and plus I wanted to do something a little different in this one. And I don't usually use single-sided papers. I just love having all the patterns and colors, so I usually use double-sided paper. But I kind of enjoyed using the single-sided papers in here. It leaves a lot more room for journaling, for one thing. And it just gives you a lot of flexibility for how you can decorate the page. And it was a little bit like of a challenge. So I really kind of liked doing that in this journal. So on this one, I really decorated the covers. I don't always do that. But like I said, I love stars. And I had all these stars. These all came from the Pretty Little Studio Christmas Cheer collection. So I was so excited to see all the stars in that. So I took advantage and added those to the cover. This cover I thought was really cute for Christmas because the little girls are in their nightgowns and with a little candle. She reminds me of, is it St. Lucia? I think I'm saying that right. It's like a Swedish, I think, Christmas tradition. So anyway, she reminded me of that. And the back I didn't really finish decorating. I was going to add some more to it, but I just added one of the scallops from Pretty Little Studio to the back there. And on the inside, what I did was I layered this red gingham paper on the inside of the cover. And then I added a vintage handkerchief pocket. So you can see like the front and the back, get in the middle here, of the screen, this vintage handkerchief. So what I did was I just happened to have one that was the exact width of the finished cover. So I just folded it in half and I sewed, you can't tell now because I have it covered with this trim, but I sewed the top of it, and I just used double-sided tape to attach it, and it's staying really strong. I didn't want to sew and have all the stitching on the outside of the cover, so I just used double-sided tape, and it's working out great. And it also was embroidered with the letter J, so I decided to turn that into the word joy, and I used stickles, glitter glue, to trace the J so it would show up because it was just the same, color as the fabric. And then I added some glitter alpha letters to go with that to make the word joy. So this one I have a little bit of KB and Friends printables in here. KB and Friends have amazing Christmas printables. At the time that I was working on this, my printer was broken. So I only added these two just actually a few days ago. And I don't have a lot of KB and Friends printables in here because I don't have a lot of printables in here, period, because my printer was broken for so long. But I do love using her printables. So in here is mostly die cuts, again, from either Pretty Little Studio or that Simple Stories collection. And the book pages that are in here are just from a few different Christmas children's books, and then just some cookbooks and other kind of vintage pages and some ledger paper. So here is one of those rectangular doilies, and I made a little shaker frame on this one, and I just used a cardstock frame on this one with some dimensional tape, and I filled it with sequins and a little tool window with some die cuts inside. All kinds of fun things you can do with these doilies. So this side has one of the pockets I was talking about. So I just used dimensional tape, foam tape, and you don't have to even do that. You can just use double-sided tape and just leave one side open. This one I wanted to be able to add some more ephemera to it, so I made it with dimensional tape, so it was a little bit of a wider pocket. So there's some vintage ephemera and then just some other little die cuts. And like I said, if you have any questions about anything you see in here, please just let me know. I'm just going to flip through this one pretty quickly. So this is an example, again, of one of those plain pages. I used some washi tape, 3 strips of different washi tapes to decorate the top, and then I added this foam word sticker from the Simple Stories collection and some of the little foam stickers there. And then this journal, I didn't even say what I'm using this one for. This is going to be for documenting my favorite Christmas recipes. So all of my cookie recipes and the recipes I use when we entertain, I'm going to put in here. So I will probably just write a recipe directly on that page. And there's some ledger paper also for writing on. This pocket just has some different vintage ephemera on it, Christmas card exchange card, and just some fun pieces. This is a little vintage tally. This is one of the die cuts from Pretty Little Studio. And this page has a lot going on, so I added the ruffle to the back side of the page, and then I added some pom-pom trim on the top, And then I have this vintage jukebox label and one of those holly embellishments here, so they kind of stick out of the journal there. And this little page clip topper, I just used one of the cardstock word phrases and then just added a whole bunch of little trims to the back, and I just attached it with washi tape. This isn't even very permanent here. I need to go back and shore everything up, but that's how I did that really quickly. Actually, let me pop that out. And then on this side I have a vintage recipe card. So I have some vintage recipes in here, and then I'm going to add my own recipes as well. I'm probably going to photograph or photocopy some of my mom's and my grandmother's recipes, like Christmas recipes, and add them to my journal. I don't want to use the originals, so I'm just going to photocopy them and add those to my new ones also. And I do use some of their recipes at Christmas time as well. So right here is a pocket that I made from a napkin. So vintage napkins are also fun to add as a different kind of textural page. And because this is a traveler's notebook, it was too narrow to fit the napkin in its like regular size. So when I put the napkin in, I just folded the part that hung over back and made it into a pocket. So I just closed in the top and bottom and made that a pocket. And then I just added this little tickets to kind of make it obvious that there was a pocket here. And then I just added some pieces of ephemera in the pocket. Some more ephemera. It's just a mix of vintage and printables and store-bought, I guess you could call it, ephemera. I love mixing all of them up together. This page, I just added this little border, and I just tacked down the edges and left the middle part open, and that makes like a little tuck spot. This is one of the KB and Friends printables. And then down here on the bottom, I just decorated it with some washi and this label that's pretty little studio, and this Tim Holtz little mini flash card. And I just did the bottom, like attached the bottom and left the top open. There's a dimensional little poinsettia, that's from Hobby Lobby. And then I just added some little pieces as like it's a pocket there. And this paper clip comes off, and you can take the ephemera off and open up the flap there for some journaling. I have some printable recipe cards in here. This one is, I think the two printable recipe cards I have in here are from an Etsy shop called Chocolate Rabbit. This die cut is Pretty Little Studio. That's a vintage ticket. Just some more places I can write recipes down. This little pocket here is a remnant from a quilt, so it was just the right size pretty much for this page. Actually, it didn't quite go all the way to the edge, so what I did on the edge was added some vintage trim, and then I added this lace next to that, and then on top of the lace are those plastic letters that were from Tim Holtz that I was mentioning. I have the 25 in my other journal, and it spells out snow, one of my absolute favorite things, and I thought it was kind of neat seeing the lace like behind the letters because it looks like snow. So snow is one of my absolute favorite things, so I always have some kind of nod to snow in my journals, my Christmas journals anyway. And this is just a vintage little index that came with a like recipe box, so I've got that in there. Put some cookie recipes in that. Pretty Little Studio die cut. This is the other side of that napkin. So this one I just trimmed out with some ribbons and some trims. And then put my ephemera in the pocket there. This little tag, so this is a repair tag, and it has like a perforation on the bottom. If you like fold it back, you can make a pocket on the back of the tag. So if you ever come across those kind of tags that have the perforated part to it, you can just bend it back and make it a pocket. And then I just added some little decorative elements to it. And here on this page, I have this trim on the bottom. I'm going to take this out so you can see it better. This is like felt trim that comes on a roll. And I just kind of attached the bottom, and it actually was adhesive on the bottom. And I just kind of made it like a little tuck spot / pocket. And then I just kind of tucked my ephemera behind it there. This was from Peachy Cheap. Did a collaboration with October Afternoon, and one of the items in that kit was this roll of felt trim. It was not felt trim from October Afternoon. It didn't have a brand on it, so I'm not sure who made it, but I have seen it before somewhere else, just like the felt trims. Somebody else might know where that came from. Let me know if you know like what brand makes that. I'm not really sure. It's one of my favorite vintage coasters. I love those little Santas. I only have a couple of those. This one here, I just made this into a pocket and trimmed it with some little iridescent snowflakes there. And just added, I love this die cut to that journaling card. It's a pretty little studio die cut. And on this page, I just have some washi tape and some star trim. It's like puffy star trim. And it's just open enough on the edge so it can be like a little pocket for some ephemera pieces. It's another one of those recipe cards. So lots of space. I could write recipes right here. Add this on top. Take a picture of something that you make with that recipe. You can add that to your journal. And then here, I think I shared this pocket that I made on this flap with these 2 bingo cards. I think I shared that on my Instagram. This is one of those repair tags I was talking about that's perforated on the bottom. And then on the other side of that pocket is just this ephemera from October Afternoon. Oh, I didn't put that in the pocket. We'll just pop it over there. Vintage Betty Crocker recipe card. And that brings us to the end of this journal. Love these telegrams, KB and Friends. She has a whole set of all these different telegrams, and they are great just to decorate and then journal on the back. So that is my journals. Please let me know if you have any questions. I appreciate you guys so much joining me on this video. I know it's been a while. I feel like super rusty. You can probably tell. The video I did the other day of the shaker that's inside of this journal was the first video I've done in like 2 months on YouTube. So I'm feeling really rusty, but hopefully I will be able to get back to making some more videos soon. The biggest thing that I'm working on right now is an online course teaching how to make these sewing pattern journals. So I call these my Kittydories, and very soon I will be sharing some more information about my course coming up. It's probably going to be out in March. That's what I'm planning for, probably near the end of March. So if you want more information on the course, I'm going to have a waitlist sign up somewhere soon. I will be posting about that. I'll probably do a video on YouTube to share about the course, and I will also be talking about it on my Instagram. And also, if you want, I can add you to my email list. I'm going to put all that information in the description box below. So if you're interested in the course, let me know, and I will be happy to make sure you get the information about the course. And I thank you guys so much again for joining me. Please let me know if you have questions about anything. Hope you guys are doing great, and I will see you really soon. Bye now.